So, David, you were a grad at the Department of Defense. Can you tell me what got you interested in applying to the grad program there and not going and working somewhere else?
Well, I was always interested in doing engineering through high school, and I was also really interested in airplanes. So I thought I might join the Air Force when I finished high school, but I decided instead to do an engineering degree. So I did a Bachelor of Physics first, and then I went on and did a Bachelor of Aerospace Engineering. And when I was looking for jobs, I thought the Navy might be interesting. I know the Australian Navy operates helicopters, and at that stage, I was really interested in working on helicopters. So that really motivated me to apply for the program.
David, as a grad at the Department of Defense, can you give me a bit of a high-level walkthrough of what the application process looks like to the graduate program?
So the first stage is submitting an application, and that's putting in a resume, a cover letter, and then a brief spiel on why you're interested in being part of the application, being part of the program. The second stage is a set of online tests, and they're there to assess things like your emotional intelligence, your critical thinking, a few skills like that. If you successfully pass through that, you go on to the third stage, which is a full day of a panel interview, a group interview, a written assessment, and then also a presentation to a group as well. And that's quite a full on day. And you successfully through all of that, then you'll get an offer.
David, if you can recall, you're a grad at the Department of Defense. Do you remember what was sort of the hardest part of the application process to the grad program, and how did you handle it?
So I would say that probably the most challenging part was the group interview. So at that stage, I was in Melbourne and we were in a full lockdown during the pandemic. So all the interviews were done online. And so the group interview was kind of hard to gauge how other people were responding to the questions and responding to the problem because everyone was online. And so you don't get that feedback that you get if you're doing a face-to-face interview. So I found that element quite challenging.
David, you're a grad at the Department of Defense. Do you remember what was probably the trickiest interview question that they asked you during the application process to the grad program?
I think the most challenging question was probably, what is your biggest weakness? I guess no one likes talking about what their biggest weakness is. So for me, I felt it was probably my communication skills. And I was just honest and upfront about that in the interview. And I said that I was hoping through the grad program, I'd also be able to really develop that set of skills. That was something that I was really looking to focus on.
What do you think was probably the number one thing that got you successfully through that application process? After all, it's definitely not the easiest.
Did a lot of background research before I came into that final interview. I did a lot of research into the Navy and into the Defence Force, which really helped for the group interview and for the presentation. On top of that, I had a fair bit of background research into what potential questions they might ask. And I really tried to think about how I'd respond to each question before coming into the interview.
So, David, you are a grad of Australia's Department of Defense. After you got hired and you're into the program, what did your first few days, weeks, and generally the onboarding process look like for you?
My first few days, I just moved from Melbourne to Canberra, which is a much smaller city. So it was really getting used to living in a new city. And on top of that, there was a big orientation week for all the defence graduates. So it was really just a chance to meet other graduates from different areas and meet people within the Navy organisation. The first week was just spent doing a lot of onboarding, learning about those processes. And then by the end of the week, I was introduced to my supervisor. And from there, we were straight into engineering work.
David, as a grad at the Department of Defense, give me a little bit of like a day in your life. What does it look like? A little bit of a step-by-step. How's that go?
So I'm currently on rotation in Sydney with the Mine Clearance and Diving program office. So a typical day for me will be getting into the office, checking my emails and checking my personal tasks list. And from there, we really might be working on a variety of engineering projects. So I might be on the support boats doing an engineering change, or I could be in the workshop with the sailors working on their underwater robots. Days typically vary, and typically I'll be working on more than one project at a time. So I could be in the workshop in the morning, have lunch, and then after lunch, I might be reviewing technical manuals back in my office. Yep, a pretty broad range of activities throughout any day.
So, David, as a grad at Australia's Department of Defense, what is probably the coolest thing or project that you've gotten to work on so far?
I'd have to say one of the best experiences was probably going to sea on one of our large helicopter carriers. We carried out some firefighting tests on board HMAS Adelaide. So that was a great fun experience, getting to spend a few days at sea. We were up on the flight deck doing firefighting activities and testing out the different systems. So being able to experience life at sea for just those few days was something very memorable, and I don't think I'll forget that in a hurry.
Can you tell me what sort of career opportunities can being a grad there lead to in the future?
So the Royal Australian Navy is currently going through a huge acquisition process to bring on a whole load of new ships and submarines. So there's a lot of growth there in the future, particularly in naval shipbuilding and engineering. So there's a real push at the moment to bring new engineers on board to build these ships and submarines. And we're talking about work that extends up until 2040 onwards. So definitely a lot of work over the next few decades.
David, as a grad at the Department of Defense, what types of learning and development opportunities do you get access to?
The Department of Defense is awesome because they will sponsor you to go back to university. Currently, they're paying for me to go back and do my master's, which is a fantastic opportunity. On top of that, Navy offers a whole load of courses that specifically relate to the systems that we work on in Navy. So there are things like working on underwater robots. There's a course down in Tasmania. There are things like courses in firefighting and survival at sea down in Jervis Bay, which is just out of Sydney. So there are fantastic opportunities through Defence and through Navy.
Do you have any sort of work from home, remote work, or a hybrid type of work model that you get to engage in, or how does that sort of work for you?
Yeah, so there is actually. So at the moment, it depends on what rotation you're in and what office you're working in. But currently I'm doing 3 days in the office and 2 days at home, which is a great work-life balance.
For other students wanting to apply to the grad program at Australia's Department of Defense, what is probably the number one piece of advice that you can give them to help them successfully ace that grad application process?
I'd say definitely do your research before coming into the interview. Understanding a little bit about the Navy and a bit about the Defence Force will really help you during those group presentations. On top of that, preparing in your mind a few questions that they might ask and thinking through some of the answers and how you'd respond. I'd say that would be my biggest piece of advice.
What is probably the coolest fringe benefit that you get for working there?
There are a few great fringe benefits. So an awesome super is one of probably the best ones, but also flex time, being able to choose your own working hours is a huge bonus. And I've really enjoyed having a flexible working arrangement.
What is probably the main reason why you would encourage other students to apply to Australia's Department of Defense graduate program?
If you're an engineer, it's an awesome opportunity to work on some of the coolest equipment in the country. There's lots of hands-on work, so you can be on ships or working on helicopters or submarines, which is just a pretty incredible experience that you won't get through a lot of other companies. On top of that, the grad program allows you to take external placements. So you might end up working for industry for 6 months, or you might end up in a different part of defense doing some really interesting work that doesn't necessarily have to relate to Navy. So it's a pretty broad program. And if you're interested in something, they'll do their best to facilitate that so that you can be working in what interests you.